Would you have preferred to go by Anna May or Anna Boughtwood?
Anna Boughtwood is good. I like my last name.
That's the writer name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I do zines, I normally just put it as Anna May.
Yeah.
But if I publish writing, I use my full name.
Yeah. That is always, I'm learning that that's a pretty common thing. And it's a panic attack for me now, like what we do with that. So yeah, I just wanted to sit down with you. We just got really fantastic video of you performing at the last poetry night.
This vein is so polite, decorating its speech with please and thank you, and addressing the adults by their last names. It keeps its elbows off the table and writes thank you cards. The vein has a firm handshake, but keeps its bloody fingertips bandaged so it doesn't bleed on people when shaking their hands. The vein has impeccable table manners, chewing with its mouth shut, asking to be excused from the dinner table, washing the dishes. This vein says grace. This vein dutifully fasts during Lent and dresses carefully for Mass each Sunday. Reads about the saints, learns their histories. The more violent and grotesque, the better. This vein feels closest to St. Lucy, who plucked out her own eyeballs and carried them on a plate when she carries dishes from the kitchen to the dining room. This vein knows how to bear each needle stoically so it doesn't inconvenience the phlebotomist with its pain. Okay, so some of these I'm going to read people here have heard before. Some of you.
Hey, I'm new. I'm ready for her.
But then Stephanie and Nizal. This next one I'm going to read is called Haunted House. Wrote this after horrific breakup. Haunted House. Again, you necromance the relationship. I entomb my worry that I'm your third, fourth, fifth choice, the mystery-flavored lollipop left over in the bowl while trick-or-treating. I bury the way you are as terrified of commitment as Jigsaw's captives are of the needle pit and the reverse bear trap. I offer my neck to your fangs in every room of your haunted house. I send you our astrological compatibility charts as sexts. The doubts scratch at the coffin lid. How could you handle the haunted corn maze of parenthood when you are too afraid to cook on a gas stove? To quiet the hungry voices, I study the beard trimmings you leave behind in the bathroom sink like they are tea leaves. I read your palm with my tongue. Just as I am about to gaze into the crystal ball that is your bald head, a jump scare breakup bloodies me for the third time. Recovering from the breakup is a months-long DIY exorcism. I should have known better than to love someone who sees monogamy as a saw trap. Again, you're just a ghost haunting the viewer list of my Instagram stories.
Well, I've always kind of been a journaler. And I've been keeping like a diary like pretty consistently for the past 10 years. I didn't really start creative writing until maybe 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
I just needed to find a hobby.
Yeah.
A wholesome, like sober hobby.
Yeah.
So I was like, let me try to write some poetry.
Yeah. Writing is a good, I think it's not just a sober hobby. It's like a sobering hobby. Like, especially coming from journaling, like it occurs to me that a lot of your poetry is very real to you, right? Do you think that that's crossover from the journaling practice?
I think it is. Yeah, because I'm just so used to like sitting down and just like being completely unfiltered when I journal. Like it's there's no rhyme or reason. There's no self-censorship. So I kind of try to bring that to the writing process, but then like edit and make it.
How has the process of like sharing that with the world felt?
It's felt kind of strange and a little like nerve-wracking. I get a little nervous to read for people, and if I sit down and think about how, there's stuff out there with my full legal name.
Yeah.
It's just very like personal or just kind of offbeat.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel a little nervous about that. But if I just don't think about that, it's fine.
Yeah. Has it become easier to do that now that it's more routine for you?
Yes, definitely. I think just the more I do it, the easier it gets. Like the first time I came to this open mic, I read a very strange poem about the ocean.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I got the audacity to do that, but I just figured I'd go for it. And if it was really out of line, I would be banned.
Yeah. So. I appreciate the audacity for it because it fit immediately in. Like that, that's always, I think, what we're looking for is like, what is the most audacious thing we can do? And a big part of like that for me, as I think the person who promotes and instigates that as much as possible, is I also came from like a heavy journaling practice. I have always like done creative writing, but I started getting more into poetry after I started doing journals for therapy. And I got yelled at by my therapist because my therapist was like, I feel like you're writing this to like impress me and not purely for like emotional satisfaction. And I said, I think it's more fun for me if I feel like I'm sharing it with somebody, right? Like it's more rewarding to me to do that. And that's how I arrived at poetry. And so I'm always interested. I think if you're nervous about a poem and about sharing it with people, like that's where you should be in the world, right? Like that's where good stuff comes.
Like that's the time you should push through and go for it.
Yeah.
I think.
Like I should ask, I'm trying to formulate this as a question. How did it feel for you to have your brother here when we did that reading a couple weeks ago?
So this next one is called Tell Me About Your Childhood. 1. We got an extra day off from Catholic school the day the Pope died. My brother and I spent the day playing 3D Pinball Space Cadet on the family computer and eating strawberry frosted Pop-Tarts. The church had an Easter potluck luncheon in the school's cafeteria. My mom brought scalloped potatoes, but my eyes were on a vanilla cake baked into the shape of a lamb with fur made of coconut flakes mixed with frosting. 2. While preparing for our first communion, Father Powers let us taste test some unblessed communion wafers. The body of Christ came packaged in industrial-sized clear plastic sleeves, like they were no worthier than Ritz crackers. I tasted disappointment. It was like chewing packing peanuts. A classmate asked Father if communion wafers taste different, better, after they're blessed. The answer was no. Even after consecration, they still taste like styrofoam. 3. Does your brother just not eat? I always dodged the question, but the answer was no. Technically, he did eat. Toasted potato bread downed in cinnamon sugar, Reese's peanut butter cups, chocolate milk, Ritz crackers spread with peanut butter, strawberry frosted Pop-Tarts. All other foods were out of the question. Easter honey-baked hams, vegetables, my mother's scalloped potatoes. But why won't he eat? My parents' concern for my brother's eating habits came packaged in clear plastic sleeves of rage. 4. Family dinner was an evening baked into the shape of a hostage negotiation. The dining room was baked into the shape of a boxing ring. Restrained, he dodged the metal spoonfuls pressed against his mouth, but my eyes were on the tablecloth. 5. My memories only taste more bitter over time.
It felt really good because my brother has always been really supportive and like we really have each other's backs. Felt a little strange. Like beforehand, I had told him that I kind of wrote a poem that he was somewhat played a role in. Yeah. But I said to him, like, you know, do you want to read it first? And also, like, you have veto power here. Like, if you don't want me to read it, like, I won't, because I'll defer to you because you're my brother. And he strangely, like, didn't even want to read it. He just said, no, I trust you. Like, I'm sure it'll be good. And I was like, are you sure?
Yeah. Do you have that like writerly worry that like you're going to write about someone and they're going to like discover it and hate you forever?
Sometimes, but if I'm writing something that's kind of unflattering about someone else, it's because like I don't really care what they have to, you know what I mean? Because then they're like not in my life, or very deliberately like I don't really have contact with them. So I kind of feel like it's their own problem if they went looking for something and read something
if you're
they
trying
didn't
to
like.
discover hatred. Yeah, always fun.
I tell you I'm sick, suffering my ass off, burdened with pain that is a howling iPad toddler, forever kicking my back of an airplane seat body. And you ask, but have you tried yoga? Each morning, I find myself in corpse pose for perhaps half an hour, making eye contact with the ceiling, trying to lift a coffin lid of pain. But have you tried yoga? While standing for long periods of time, my body often falls into an unsteady tree pose, my weight tilting from one leg to the other, while a heavy pain child demands to be held on my hip. But have you tried yoga? This week, I perfected my cobra pose, used my fangs to rip open the letter from my health insurance plan, used my exceptional eyesight to read denial of coverage, and readied my venom to spit to appeal their decision. But have you tried yoga? I feel like I'm always in a half forward bend. Half as productive, half as patient, half as pleasant as everyone else. Sometimes pain turns me into a cobra, rearing up and ready to spit. So I wrote this next one after a local news story, but more specifically about like the comment section. People were really acting up there. So it's called Privacy. Local news tells the story of a man, a hunter armed with a camera. Women are deer, trying to explain in the comment section how when his camera lens is trained on us, we are the crosshairs of a gun. How the snap of the camera shutter is a gunshot. How when he posts the photos of us online, he's confined us and pinned our legs in a forever snare trap. Local news tells the story of a man, the same man, a lepidopterist treating the internet as his butterfly pinning board. Women are the butterflies, straining against his pins, piercing our thorax, trying to explain how it feels to have the public's gaze upon our innermost wings. And men are birds, flocking to the post, singing in an endless dawn chorus with the refrain, there is no reasonable expectation of privacy in a public place. I read this next one the first time I came to open mic, and thank you for not banning me.
I remember this one, and I loved it. Every second, I'm so excited.
Now I can't wait.
It's called The Caress of a Compass. My neck was the 80% of the sea floor, unmapped, until I met you, a gentle cartographer. Your hand was a delicate vessel, sailing from the seashell of my ear, across the east carotid to the starboard side. You coiled each of my braids around your fists like they were sailing ropes. I unzipped your life vest with my teeth, let you consult the compass rose in my throat. I welcomed your anchor weight atop me, let you go as deep as James Cameron to the Titanic. Yet where I saw a red sky at night, you saw a red sky in morning. I was planning a lifelong voyage as co-captains, and you were uncoiling the ropes to the lifeboat, preparing to sail alone toward the siren song of polyamory. I used to be seasick with regret over losing you.
Awesome.
This next one, happy June, everyone. You cried? It's called Two Women in the Woods. The only puzzled looks we elicit in the woods are those from wildlife. I find the harmless curiosity much easier to bear than the well-intentioned curiosity of strangers. The only whispers we hear are the leaves trembling amid the trees, which I much prefer to the murmured speculation of strangers. Here, our love is neither illicit nor remarkable.
Did the reading practice come before the writing practice for you?
Yes, definitely. Like, I've always been a big reader. Like, yeah, growing up, like in the summers, I just like walk to the library and I'd pick out like my assigned summer reading book so I could get those read as soon as possible so that I could move on to like what I wanted to read.
I've got my stuff to read. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've always been a big reader. Yeah, I feel like I read mainly fiction. I also just kind of read what appeals to me.
Yeah.
It's kind of like...
Do you have what's your favorite book that you've read in like the last year or so?
Okay. Deliver Me by Elle Nash.
Yeah.
It was so dark, gory, body horror. Involved like... It's going to sound very weird when I pitch it, but it had to do with like living in the Ozarks and meat processing plants and also insects and weird sex stuff. Yeah. But it's by one of my favorite writers and it just blew me away. Like I really couldn't put it down. So.
Were you always a big horror reader?
No, not really.
Really?
No. This was like a bit of a bit dark, like even I'd say like I read a lot of kind of like dark fiction or like what I would classify as like unhinged women stories. So that can get very dark and kind of a horror element, but that had more of a horror element than other things I normally read.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same way. Like I'm happy to read dark things. I usually shy away from horror. What is then, so your most recent favorite book is this like incredibly gory body horror book. What's an early favorite book for you?
Ooh. I really liked A Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Growing up, I just remember being very like moved by it. Yeah, like when I was growing up, if someone would ask me what was my favorite book, I would say that.
A Tree Grows in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
What's your favorite unhinged woman book?
It's a classic of unhinged women stories, but My Year of Rest and Relaxation.
Yeah.
Because she kind of like almost foresaw the pandemic because it's about a woman who wants to just stay in for a year and sleep.
Yeah.
She goes this very like offbeat psychiatrist who prescribes her a lot of strange drugs so she can just stay in and sleep.
Yeah.
And then years later, we had the pandemic where it was normal and the good
and
thing
that was
to
what
just
everyone was doing.
Yeah.
I had a professor once pitch me that book as I can't remember, is it Gone Girl? Is about the woman in like the psych ward. I can't remember the name of that book, but someone pitched My Year of Rest and Relaxation as that book, but for people with actual mental illness, and I was like, that's fantastic. Would you consider yourself an unhinged woman?
I really try not to be, but I have the tendencies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try to keep it in check.
Is that do you think that reading those types of stories is then like an outlet for that sort of like unhinged the behavior?
Yeah, I think so, because I truly like on a daily basis just try to be like responsible and just calm and think before I act. So reading about people just blowing up their lives and doing crazy thing after crazy thing is kind of a way to enjoy the chaos without participating in it.
Do you think that writing helps you outlet that too?
Yeah, I think so too.
Would you consider your own writing unhinged?
At times, yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. I have to be honest.
Do you have like a favorite, like is there a poem or something that you've written where you're like, this is me fully off the rails?
I think the haunted house poem, I'd have to say, because it's just fully me getting like really, really weird and angry, and mean,
Yeah.
a little bit mean, but in a creative way.
I think divulging that is like so important. And it's always unique to me. There is always, every year there's like the Unhinged Woman book that like crosses over and that people read, right? But I think largely it's like not a thing people look to literature for, which annoys me because it is some of my favorite literature is people just kind of like losing their mind, you know? So I'm always curious like what the next wave of that is going to be. Like, do you find yourself drawing direct inspiration in your writing process?
Like from books I've read?
Yeah.
Not really. Well, sometimes I'll sit down and I'll like set a timer for 10 minutes with the goal of just writing as much as possible. And then to do that, I might kind of take a line from a book I read and then use that as just a jumping off point and then just go completely wherever my mind takes me, like really with the goal of just getting as many words down on the page as possible. But other than that, I don't think I take direct. I'm so worried about like accidentally plagiarizing or like forgetting that I read something in a book and then writing it and thinking I had the original thought.
How much are you usually when you do that full just like trying to get as many words on the paper free write, like do you edit down a lot from that?
Not really. The free writes haven't turned into much of anything that I've written yet.
Yeah.
Like I think
Really?
maybe in the future,
Yeah.
where I don't so much as like edit down from that, but sometimes I'll pull one very small part of it and then be like, okay, I want to write a poem based off of that, and then it'll kind of send me off in a different direction, if that makes sense.
That makes total. That's how I write everything. Is I sit down to write one thing, start writing it, and then realize halfway through that I meant to be writing something entirely different.
And then I open up another like little Word document and just be like, okay, this is another poem. I always have just like 5 different things going on at a time that I'm writing, and then I just kind of lose steam with one of them, and then put it to the side and let me work on something else.
So is the intentional free write the usual generative process for you, or like I hate to ask like where do ideas come from, but like when do you start something?
I kind of start something if I kind of just have one idea or one line. Like to give an example, poem I read at the open mic recently, kind of came across, I went to go get my blood drawn at Albany Med. And, they always ask me, do you have any good veins? And then this time the phlebotomist was like especially animated. Like she kind of tapped on my vein and said, good morning, vein. So then she's like talking to my vein. So then I don't know. I just kind of, from there, I was like, how weird can I get about
how long
veins?
Are you like ruminating something like that? Like, is it like, do you go home immediately from that experience, or is it sitting with you?
It really varies. Like that one was pretty immediate. Like I just kind of left that appointment and was like, I gotta make some sort of poem about this. A lot of times there are things that are kind of just ruminating for a while, or I just have like one line or like one sentence fragment, like just kind of bouncing around in my head. And sometimes it just takes a really long time for it to just kind of sit there for me to even think of anything I can write to build off of that.
I want to interject here with like a little, I think you and I have talked a little bit about this, or I've mentioned it before, but like I haven't really talked about I have like some weird medical issues going on. I haven't had to deal with it much lately, but my heart doesn't beat right. Like they're called premature ventricular contractions, which is such an annoying thing to say. But basically 1,500 times a day, my heart beats an extra time. And apparently that's really bad. The version of the story I like to tell is that when my cardio discovered it, he said, if we don't solve this problem somehow, you're going to have your first heart attack in your early 40s. Right. And he said that like it was like a positive. He was like, you're going to live through the heart attack. And I was like, I don't
Oh, God.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to live through I hope it kills me. Like I want to have my first and final heart attack in my early 40s.
Yeah.
That would be much better. But I went through that experience. I was going through that experience in a toxic job and toxic relationship. And then also my heart was trying to kill me. And that was very isolating. And one of the things that I like really fell in love with about your work is I never put much like thought back into what that was, like what the medical stuff was. And I'm going to introduce a second idea, and I promise this will wrap back around. One of the things I don't typically like about horror fiction is one of the things I also struggle with in fantasy sometimes, which is that it's very like zoomed out, right? People will write horror stories where it's like, zombies are consumerism. And it's like, I don't deal with consumerism. The horror that I do like is very zoomed in, right? Like it's the thing I love about Kafka is Kafka will take you through, he takes one idea, like in The Hunger Artist, there's a Kafka short story about a guy who starves himself in front of a crowd. And it's 15 pages, and that's all he talks about, is just a guy starving himself for attention. And I love that. And I think one of the things I fell in love with the most about your work was it felt like this very like zoomed in, like you are really capable of like finding a specific moment or line and really giving it like infinite weight. And that kind of combined with this, like, I think anytime you can do that, you find a thing and you give voice to something that like no one else gives voice to, right? And so some of the medical themes, like a thing like a phlebotomist saying good morning to your vein is to me like one of those things where I'm like, I hope, like, I'm so happy to know other people have had weird doctor experiences, So that is my soapbox for today, a thing that I just want to like give you compliments for. A part of me wants to ask more about the medical side. If you're comfortable with it, I would love to talk about it. If not, I don't want to like put you on the spot with it.
No, I'm fine to talk about it. The main thing is I have a fun little disease called small fiber neuropathy.
Okay.
And it's just basically known for being really painful. And it just means that everything is more painful. Some people, when they have it, it has a very defined cause. Like, for example, diabetes can cause it. Yeah. So then the treatment is I don't want to say straightforward. Okay, diabetes causes it. We treat the diabetes, case closed. I am of the percentage of people who there is no cause, or speaking of doctors telling you things that don't make you feel better, there is no cause. Or a doctor said to me, but maybe we just haven't found the disease that's causing it yet. Yep. I was like, that doesn't make me feel better.
It feels much worse.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the main thing. I just have chronic pain, and it's been like going on for 6 years at this point. It's just, I try not to like let it interfere with my life, but it does.
Yeah.
So writing poetry, I'm also kind of trying to like make art out of the medical encounters is also, I'm always like referring to it. So I'm trying to make like lemonade out of these lemons, all these lemons. Yeah. It's kind of trying to like make some art out of a shitty situation.
The PVCs are the same way for me. So most people who deal with them, it's because of a clogged artery. I ran through the full, they ultrasounded me. Something I need to go back to at some point is, I don't know if you've ever had a cardio ultrasound.
No.
They make you listen to it. Because the nurse needs to hear it, right?
Oh.
And they're like, oh, this is cute, because the nurse is used to like a baby kicking around in somebody. But instead what you're hearing is your own heartbeat, which is God. So squishy and gross.
Yeah.
And I think that like that sort of liminality, like knowing something's wrong and I don't know what, is in itself such a big horror. Like I think it reads in your work quite often, like just that sort of like uncomfortable. I don't really know what's wrong is amazing to see. Like the art you've turned out of it is really wonderful.
Thank you. That really means a lot.
Yeah.
For you to say.
Yeah. I think that's as good an ending note as ever. I think it's time to turn air conditioning back on. I'm like feeling the sweat build up in me. I'm watching it build up on everyone else.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Like I think that is as in depth as we're going to get. I'm not going to outro this. I'm going to end up cutting this at some point. So
no, like the best part is you just never cut anything.
Yeah.
And it just like peters out.
And I'll just preface this by saying it's all good. Okay. This is called I'm Getting My Biopsy Done at the Mall. If the doctors ever want to repeat the biopsy, I'm not going back to image care. I don't care if the facility is an American College of Radiology accredited breast imaging center of excellence. I'm going to the mall. And I'm not going to bother fighting with Blue Cross Blue Shield about in-network versus out-of-network coverage, because I refuse to compromise when it comes to my health. I'll get my biopsy done at Claire's, that purple and glittery store tucked between a frozen yogurt shop and a Spencer's Gifts in Crossgates Mall. Besides, even if Claire's is out-of-network for breast biopsies, it should still be fairly affordable, between the customer loyalty rewards program and all the buy one biopsy, get two body glitter free coupons I have saved up. So I'll get my biopsy done at Claire's. And why not? You know, when I was at Image Care, I didn't actually see the biopsy needle. I kept my eyes closed the entire time because I'm terrified of needles, but it sounded an awful lot like one of those ear-piercing guns. And who is more skilled at wielding an ear-piercing gun than a Claire's employee? I would just feel more comfortable getting my biopsy done at the mall. After all, there's an Orange Julius right next door, in case I start to feel lightheaded. Can you believe that Image Care gave me one measly miniature ice pack to tuck into my bra after the procedure, despite the nurse lecturing me about how important it is to ice the incision to minimize bruising? But if I get my biopsy done at Claire's, there's a food court right next door, and I can just walk over to the combination ice machine soda dispenser outside the Wendy's and funnel all the ice I could possibly need directly into my bra. At Image Care, the biopsy results can take anywhere from 3 to 10 business days to come back, because they have to send the sample to Albany Med, and then a pathologist has to examine each cell under the microscope for evidence of cancer. And this is just an absurd amount of time to wait when you're waiting to find out if your tumor is benign or if you have cancer. But if I go to Claire's, the assistant manager / cashier / biopsy specialist gives you the results within minutes. All she has to do is examine the sample with a glittery pink hand mirror at the checkout counter. And if the store is crazy busy, like it's Black Friday or something, you don't need to wait for a phone call like you have to do with Image Care. An employee will just text you, and the text will be all lowercase and says, "Congrats, your tumor is benign, smiley face." You'll still get your official results in writing, though, just like you would from Image Care. Claire's will mail you the biopsy report with the good news, written in purple ink, each I dotted with a little heart. Thank you. So for this one, I don't have a title for it yet. I can't think of one.
We love good untitled poems.
Yeah. Another Happy Pride Month poem. So the B in LGBT stands for bisexual, but every time you return to the dating apps, it also stands for besieged, as in you are besieged by the couples and the polycules, besieged by their requests and demands, or demands cloaked as requests, to experiment, like you are a papier-mâché volcano waiting to be fed baking soda and vinegar, or to be shared with a man, like you are a Facebook post or a Cheesecake Factory appetizer. They're all out here looking for a third, but you're looking for your other half. The B stands for bewildered, as you puzzle over the thought that you might just be the last monogamous single bisexual person in Albany. Doesn't your body release oxytocin when you fall in love? But you're not falling in love. You read the bios, and you're awash in a sea of statements that seem like pure oxymoron. Casual yet connected. Non-serious yet authentic connections. Casual but not impersonal. And in search of slow burn kinky demisexuals. The B stands for baffled.
I just found a new Instagram bio.
That was a real one.
I didn't know I could call myself slow burn.
And slow
Yes. Or it was, it's a slow burn demisexual. Yeah, it was very descriptive.
Yeah.
This next one I wrote because house flippers kind of got their hands on our childhood home. And I don't really like the work they did. Some of it's good, but some of it's a little...
it looks like ass, just say it. It looks
Yeah, you can be honest.
Yeah. Okay, so this is called Hell is for House Flippers. In hell, you will live in a house with gray vinyl plank flooring in every room. The devil will be as committed to finding new ways to torture you in the afterlife as you are committed to cutting corners while flipping houses on Earth. As punishment for your crimes against kitchen remodels, the devil will waterboard you over the gigantic farmhouse sink. For all those times you suffocated brick by painting it, the devil will suffocate you using a $29.99 HomeGoods pillow embroidered with Live, Laugh, Love. For your egregious misuse of shiplap and wrought iron light fixtures, the devil will clockwork orange your eyes open and make you watch hours upon hours of HD TV. He will burn you in the brick fireplace you insisted on painting white. He will bash your head against the wood paneling you insisted on painting white. And he will crush your head into the original hardwood floors you insisted on painting gray. The devil will punish you as the gods punished Sisyphus, except instead of pushing a gigantic boulder up a hill, you will have to push an obscenely heavy gray flat-pack couch from Amazon up the stairs, only for it to thud back down to the first floor every time you almost reach the top.
Too soon.
And if your real estate crimes were especially heinous, if you turned your house flipped into Airbnbs, the devil will curse you with food poisoning at a party with everyone you know in attendance and banish you to the guest bathroom that only has one of those flimsy sliding barn doors.
I'm starting to think I like
it. This last one I'm going to read. I wrote this recently. It's about my Grammy and my love for her and my love for Allentown and the Lehigh Valley. Okay. So this is called Be Careful Crossing Tillman Street. We can start the day at Mary Ann Donut Kitchen. Imagine that the heat doesn't bother you anymore, that it doesn't affect your breathing. We'll walk over to Liberty Street to pick up a half dozen chocolate frosted donuts, exercising caution while crossing Tillman Street. We can eat the donuts in Trexler Park and walk through the rose gardens there. Let's walk back to the house. I'll put the kettle on to make tea. You choose what we watch on television. The options are a rerun of the Lawrence Welk Show, old episodes of 70s game shows where hosts and contestants alike have major cocaine energy, or an episode of Mystery Diagnosis. Imagine that you don't have the feeding tube anymore. What would you like for lunch? Make a grocery list and I'll run to the Giant to do the shopping for you. At the Giant, I'll fill the cart with all your favorites: orange sherbet, Litt's potato chips, peanut butter cup ice cream, and hard pretzels. I'll make us lunch when I return. Sliced Lebanon bologna sandwich on toasted white bread with brown mustard and a side of potato chips. I'll drink a berry blue Kool-Aid burst with my meal, the kind Poppy kept in the basement freezer next to his 6-packs of Yingling beer. Imagine you don't have the stress fractures in your spine that caused you to give up knitting anymore. In the afternoon, you sit in your rocking chair while I sit on the couch and we work on our knitting projects. And I'll ask you to teach me how to knit the family Christmas stocking pattern that calls for Angora yarn to construct Santa's beard. And then I'll ask you, what was it like growing up in Telford as a girl? Did you get to ride the trolley for free because your dad was a trolley conductor? What happened to all the trolleys? Did you think it was strange your parents were foster siblings? Was your relationship with your sister Dorothy difficult from the beginning? Did you feel famous when there was an article in the local newspaper about how a poorly maintained sidewalk caused you to fall and break your ankle? When your parents sued the town about that poorly maintained sidewalk, what did you spend the $25 settlement from the lawsuit on? What did you think of Poppy the first time you met him, when you were out bowling with your friends and he was working at the bowling alley as a pin setter? What happened to all the pin setters? How did you decide what to name each of your 5 children? Were you the one to write the obituary for Mark when he passed away only a couple days after he was born? Did Poppy ever tell you anything about the war, other than the story about how they would periodically push him out of a plane with a parachute strapped to his back, so you would take his work as a parachute rigger seriously? Why did you decide to convert to Catholicism? Was Nana upset when you left the Mennonite church? In your opinion, which is better, regular or wet-bottom shoe fly pie? Is it true Poppy told you he would never give up gambling? Is it true Poppy gave up gambling after one of the guys at his weekly craps game keeled over from a heart attack? But no one knew how to reach this guy's wife, and they couldn't call the police because of the gambling. So they had to carry his body to a public park so the police would find it. Did Poppy feel famous when the Morning Call wrote about his car accident on Tillman Street? Did Poppy feel famous when the Morning Call wrote about his other car accident on Tillman Street? Is it true my mom was the pickiest eater out of all your kids? Is it true your 3rd cousin had no idea the principal at the middle school he worked at was dealing meth, even though he was the school resource officer at the middle school? How did you feel when your first and favorite grandchild was born? We can end the day at Word's Cafe, sharing an order of onion rings for dinner. Grab your purse. We can leave now. I can drive, and I promise to be careful crossing Tillman Street.